Hey, we're live. Wow, it's August 2nd. Welcome to another Marketing Made Easy. I am Joey Ragona. I am in a heat wave. I don't know about you. It's amazing. So if you see me sweating, can you see? I'm already sweating. You can kind of see it. I got the fan going and crazy. It's always around this time of year. It just gets absolutely crazy over here. But I'm not complaining. I'm just letting you know the facts. The facts is that it is really, really hot. And I know that you had a little bit of downpour in your corner of the world, right, Scott?
Yeah, it's been hot the last couple of days, up 90s, high 80s today, little rain today, humidity. But then again, when you're in a 104-degree room with 40% humidity every day, what's 90 degrees?
Yeah, amazing, man, amazing.
It's a cool spell. It's a cool spell.
I hear that. We were just chatting off in the blue room, we like to call it, and we were joking around, and it's just so funny of all the things that how this world is just how they communicate, put their message out into the world, and what they do, and yeah, it's kind of funny that how everything's changed and how it would have been back in the day for us. How if had we done the things that social media does today, like you were talking about the knee scraping your
Yeah.
knee thing.
Yeah, it was, basically it was just a quick post, someone, Gene, I think LaRouche or something, and it was, when I was younger in the 70s, I fell off the swing and skinned my knee. And we didn't, I'm telling you about it now because we didn't have social media.
I know, yeah.
You and I were like, hey, we're eating steak for dinner. Hold on, hon. You can't eat yet. We got to go show the neighbors.
Yeah,
our steak.
exactly. Imagine that you just pick up your food before you eat and have to go knock on all your neighbors' doors and show them your plate of food.
This is what we're eating tonight. Ha.
Oh, it was crazy. It's crazy. But that's all fun and games. Today, I'm just looking over here on my other monitor because I want to know if I'm seeing any comments here. Not yet, but we got some people live. Welcome to the show. If you're here live, hashtag live or hashtag replay. If you're watching on the replay, that's always seems weird to me when I say it when we're actually live in the beginning of the show. But I know that there's a lot of people watching the replay because they comment and say, so thank you for that.
What's really weird, Joey, is if you ever present in a country in a different language and you have a translator.
Oh, and hearing that coming back?
Well, what happens is you talk about what you're talking about on the platform, and then you hear it coming back, but then you have to wait because they translate it. And like you try and tell a joke to an audience that speaks
no way.
language. So you tell the joke. Normally, the joke you get your reply, and you're waiting. It's like this dead air, like on radio. You're just waiting. It's like, okay, what's going on? It's like a delay on everything.
That is classic. Good to see you here, Collie. Thanks for being here.
Holly.
Today, I want to talk a little bit about clarity because I'm getting some feedback on my side here. I don't know if that's on my end or yours.
No, I'm not getting any feedback here.
Okay. I'm just hearing myself come back through, but that's okay. Let me move some windows here, and I want to talk a little bit about clarity. We're just talking offline as well, and I pulled up one of the very first presentations that I did or I would do with my private clients in like real life masterminds. And so I haven't looked at this thing in, I don't know, 7 years or something like that, whatever it is. But I quickly glanced through it, and I think there's a lot of really great information in here that we can talk about. Some of the stuff we kind of relate, we allude to in some of our conversations, and you'll see like what I'm talking about right away as we get into the first slide. And then, so I think it's going to be really valuable to you. And we were joking around that finally, after 132 episodes or 31 episodes, we're finally going to give some value. That's not true. We've been giving value since day one.
From day one. Is this 131 or 132? Do we even count anymore? Or is that over?
No, we're still counting. We're still counting. This is 131, I believe it is. Something like that. So this here is a let's just go through this and see how it goes, and stop me if you have any comments or want to add some brilliant insight, Scott, and the crew who's in the house today watching us. I think that one of the pieces that I start off with when I'm training in masterminds or talking about fear of moving forward and building businesses is this sigmoid curve. You might have heard me talk about this or mention the sigmoid curve. This is what I'm referring to, and it's where people, when I realize that people are coming into starting a business or doing anything, they're at the top of the learning phase, that first point. And most of us believe that we're starting something and we're on a excited and we're on a high and we're going to be going upwards. And I realized that that's not true. Like at the point when you decide to kind of do something, you're actually on the way down to the first dip, to the first crash, or whatever you want to call it, because the universe is challenging you. Like the obstacles are challenging you. That's what's supposed to happen. And I realized this after 3 months would basically be the point where people, when they first start coaching with me, they would say, you know what, I'm not going on, and this is out, I'm whatever it is. They have an excuse to not continue on. And that's when I first started to coach. And then I realized that, first of all, I was holding it back to new people coming in. But then I realized, you know what, I'm going to tell them exactly what is going to happen, so they're prepared for it. And to make sure that, I think this was the beginning of me going into dream clients without knowing it was dream clients. It was like, is this the right person to come in? And if I tell them now, as they're giving me money, that this is going to be probably in a worse situation 3 months from now. Are you prepared for this? But that's not really the point of this. The point is that you looking at this is kind of what happens. There's a first, when you're at the learning phase of something, the learning phase is not an upward slope. It's a downward slope. Do you have any input there or comments on that one, Scott?
Well, the comment I wanted to make was, you said the 90-day piece wasn't that important, but I think it is important, because when you let them understand that there's this learning phase, growth phase, and decline phase, that 90 days from now, you might not be in a better position. You might just be here because of all you have to go through. And I like to equate it to, I would spend 6-9 months to a year building out a restaurant or building out a business, spending a ton of money to open the door and start losing money. And I think it's important that anyone that's teaching anybody in the online space a new business skill idea, the whole thing that it's a push button, it's going to happen now and get results. It's got to be an understanding that it's going to take time.
Yeah.
I went to college for years to get my degrees in certain things. So I like what you're seeing here, that the learning phase, it is downward. It's not upward. And then, because the learning, it takes a while and it's challenging until you figure out what it is. And then you go through the growth. And then once you grow, it's like, okay, I've taken this learning, I've grown, I've used it, I've gotten here. Now what? What's next? I think that's goes back to why it's so important that, look, like Atlas, it's going to take 3 months for you to unlearn and to fully understand and embrace what this is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can go out into the world and really do it. And it's not going to happen in just 3 months that it's going to be like, okay, great, I got all the answers and my business is booming. That can happen, but just again, being in Atlas for 4 weeks and going into week 5, the sigmoid curve there is, I'm still, even though we've talked about all this stuff and I kind of watched it as you built it in the last few years, it still is now experiencing it. And that's the learning phase for me, because I'm learning it from a different piece. And as I'm learning it, it's starting the growth phase at the same time.
Right.
And I know I get to a point where, like, for me, I don't know. I'll see what happens. But I like what you put here. It's important to understand it. And I'm going to ask you now, why is it important to understand that the learning curve goes down, the growth curve goes up, and then at the end, the decline? So why is that important, Joey?
Great question. I want to give props to Teen here, that she is agreeing. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. So you learn more, realize more, and so forth. So she is kind of hitting on the answer to your question. And the learning phase really is is about learning what doesn't work and clearing away all that stuff. And that's why a lot of people get into loops. Like they don't learn and they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And then what happens is this is where they give up. Like they don't realize, first of all, they're on a downward slope. They hit the bottom. They still don't know that they've hit that dip, which I'm referring to from Seth Godin. The Dip, by the way, is a great book, and he talks a lot about this. This might even be where the picture comes from. I can't remember where I got it. But this is where I find most people give up. Like they swing through the bottom, or they're sitting there for a little bit and they're just trying to get through it. And then they're like, you know what, this is way too hard. And they see the climb where they just see a lot of obstacles in front of them. And that's when they give up. But that's where they're in the growth phase and they may not even realize it. And they just decide to give up. And this is where I meet people. This is where all my dream clients are, is those people that come in and they say, this is all the crap I've been through and I'm not willing to give up yet. Most people will exit at this point. So that's one of the big reasons I'm sharing this with everybody. But then there's something else here that I don't think is on. Maybe it is. Let me just see here. If it is.
So is there a time frame on this, or is it always different?
Yeah, it's completely different. It could be years, it could be months, Scott. That's the problem with it. We never really know. And this is the important piece that I wanted to share. I was hoping that it was on the slide. It is. This is where, and I credit John Assaraf from this. He's in later on. You'll see me with the hero picture of me and him. But this is where I credit him because he opened my eyes when he taught this to us. And it was like, okay, I get all this. But then he threw this one piece in. He's like, okay, once you get past the dip and you're on your way upward, and then everything begins to take shape, you're like, wow, everything's incredible, everything's awesome, and you're celebrating now, right? The champagne's flowing and all this kind of stuff. This is when successful people prepare for the next dip, because it's going to happen. Like, it's no matter what, it's going to happen years from now or next month. It doesn't really matter, but they're preparing for it. And they're not looking at the future as a bad thing. Like, oh my God, it's all going to burn and crash. Or all going to go bankrupt. But they prepare. So whatever that looks like, they might automate things. They might, get another income stream, something like whatever it is. But I thought that was so profound and brilliant to learn from that. And that's why I started sharing this with my clients to say, look, like, this is all great. Like, wherever you are in this sigmoid curve, be prepared that it's always going to happen. Like, there's always this curve happening.
I like to say that the only way to become comfortable is to become uncomfortable. And as soon as you become comfortable in something that you've done, you have to become uncomfortable again in order to get to the next stage of it. And that's what this is. When we learn something new, it's a metamorphosis. It's uncomfortable because it's new and it requires muscles and brain and accountability and consistency and commitment and follow through and all that good stuff. And then you get to a point, it's like, is all this effort and energy going to pay off? And I like what you have here from this is successful people prepare and go, okay, it's going to take me a little bit longer, but this is going to happen. Like Atlas, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's what they're preparing for. What this means is, what's the worst thing that can happen in your business? And so I'll give you an example of this, because I was in the real estate world training this to my first clients were like real estate investors, like heavily into that area. And the example that comes to mind, it was like, so let's say you have all your properties and you've got them all, they're all working and tenants are in there. What it means to prepare is like, okay, what happens if all of my tenants leave? Like, what do I do? How do I handle that? Like, that's what I'm talking about, or putting in these contingencies on what happens if, and they're just preparing for it and just ready for it. And so it's probably not going to happen, but that's what they're looking at, is like, this is all amazing. So let's say at the bottom of that dip, you don't have any people, like you're finding it's hard to find tenants or something, right? Or clients. Let's look at it from the business point of view. You don't have any clients, and all of a sudden you're on the growth phase. You're like, holy crap, I can't even, I got too many clients now. I can't even handle them all. this is amazing, and you celebrate. But then it's like, well, what, you got all these clients, and what happens if now all of a sudden they all leave and you got absolutely nothing again? So what are you prepared to do? And the growth phase allows you to not only celebrate, but because you have income, or you have time, or a little bit, more or revenue, and you can build teams and things like that to compensate for when the decline comes again. What does that look like? That's what it really means from my perspective.
I like it, and I agree with you.
Very cool. So this is all about that. It's not your fault. If you are failing, or feel as though you're failing, or you don't have clarity, it is not your fault, because we are, and you, I don't know, did you see this before, Scott, this presentation? Because you just said this, that we're wired to stay comfortable and move away from danger, whatever danger means to us.
That's our lizard brain. There's no doubt about it. Lizard brain says, I don't want to do anything different. Why should I? I'm okay with everything the way it is, status quo. And even if things are a little bit uncomfortable, it's still comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's the human brain is wired that way. It's the mind that has to say, okay, let's get uncomfortable. And lizard brain's like, no, I'm okay with just doing what we're doing. Leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. And then most are going to fail because they lose hope. That's why, if you've ever heard me debate about what's the most important thing, or what I believe is the driving force or core driver value behind everything, or underneath everything, is faith, belief, and hope, whatever it is. And that's why people fail, is because they lose it. They lose belief, they lose hope, they lose whatever it is, but it all comes down to belief. Now this is all coming back to me, because this is what I used to get paid to go on stages to talk about. It was always about like clarity and moving forward into fear. So I think this is all
that when you're making the big bucks, Joey. It's
this is how I made the big bucks and how I got here.
$17 to come to my seminar. I'm not sure I'm worth it, but hey, what the heck? Let's do it.
Yep, exactly.
That's just so important. I just want to clarify that they do lose hope. And I think a lot of that is because of all the false hype that's been out there for so long, and I think it's because back in the Wild West days, when there was first an internet thing, and somebody one day figured out that if I put a bunch of information on some digital stuff, I could sell it to people and they'll buy it and I'll make $1 million. And they did. And then it just became, well, let me teach you how to do all this that I just did. And again, as we've talked, well, you didn't have the 10,000 things that happened in order to get them to that point where they could then do that. And then it becomes, I'm losing hope because, gosh, well, the course I took, or the person I follow, or the information said that it was going to happen so fast, and it was going to happen in this. And I saw the PayPal statements and the Stripe statements and all the stuff in that, and it's not working. So they do lose hope. Whereas, again, I love to talk about the pyramids, because when the dude was commissioned to build the first pyramid, I'm sure things went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't all happen, and stones broke, and people didn't show up, or they passed away, or they got worked too hard, or weather and that, but they kept going, and now they're here forever. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's important that, there's got to be a lot of faith if you're doing it the right way.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of it, is like moving into fear is like the unknown. You don't know if it's going to work, and that's where faith comes in, hope comes in, and you lose it, and it's a hard road. So that's why this quote here is, only successful people are committed to excellence and do what's inconvenient. And that is moving outside of that comfort zone. Is, well, whatever, I got to take a loan on my house, or I got to stop paying for Netflix so I could continue to pay for a subscription like Kajabi or something, right? Like, it's inconvenient because I can't watch my Netflix anymore. Yeah, it is inconvenient. And that's what committed to excellence, to being the person that you want to be to serve the world. That's what it's all about. And a lot of this stuff, actually, probably all of this stuff that is taken from, the guys that I would sit with back then. This is from some John Assaraf, and I think this one coming up now is from Rich Shefferin. which is amazing because he presented this, and it's in one of his reports, that it's not your fault. It's because it's the way that your business is set up. And I think that everyone watching this can relate to this chart, that it's you doing everything. And if this is how your business is set up right now, that's a problem. And it's all of us, I'm included. And now I'm a little bit better at it, but we all start out being this person. And the whole idea of a business is to fire yourself eventually, right? Get to the point where you no longer run the business at all. And that's, I'm not talking about laptop lifestyles and sitting on the beach type of stuff. I'm talking about building a core business that can run without you because you are stepping into your zone of genius, and whatever that zone of genius is, but it doesn't require you to be that person running the entire thing.
That's like, I was having a conversation, and it basically was about, I'm doing 1,000 things. And I'm like, yeah, that's a nightmare life. And I know it, been there 2 years, 70 hours a week, 6 days a week. And it's a nightmare doing everything yourself. You know that I built projects over the years and brands, and it's not all me, but a lot of people get into this thinking they have to do it all themselves. I was joking with someone in a chat the other day, and I said, well, let me have my people get to your people, and then they'll get back to my people, and we'll make this thing happen. She goes, I don't have any people. I said, well, you better start getting some people, or at least think about, who are the people that you can start to have do some of the things that you don't need to be doing, that are keeping you away from living in your zone of genius all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And great point. It looks like Kali. Would you like to read that, or would you like me to read it?
I'll let you read it.
It's very kind of you, Joey. Thank you. I feel special now. We are Keats, moved to the familiar to be included and to belong to the tribe. To leave the tribe of familiar in our ancestors' lives meant possible death. And this carries through our DNA. And do we have to get to those roots? And that involves a huge shift and continual need of mindset checkups, love and soul hugs. Yeah, It is in our DNA. We started talking about that earlier. The whole lizard brain, fight or flight, is if you left the tribe, it was like
spelling mistake. Okay. Yeah.
No worries. I think we got the gist of it.
We got it.
You didn't leave the tribe because it was your safe place. So go on, Joey.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the point. Like, how many more things can you take on? And you know me, like, I've been on your back for 2 years about this. Like, dude, like, how many more things can you do? And this is how I always was. It was like I was so into this, 10 years ago when I first started officially coaching, and my whole mindset was about simplification, because the people that I worked with then, it was way more prominent then. Maybe it's still in this world, but back then it was, people wore the busy badge of honor. Like, that was they would just walk in and go, look at how busy I am. Look at all my calendar, how filled it is. Like, they would just be so happy about that. But they would also complain about their life. And I'm like, you got something backwards. And this is why this presentation was all put together, to try and help them get that life that they wanted. I don't really hear it a lot in my world now, where people are talking about that. They're more complaining about like how much time they don't have. I don't know. What about you? Do you hear about the busy badge of honor now these days, or not?
No, it's there was a mention.
Well, you wore it. I mean, you were doing one of them. Now, as I think about it, you were like,
I was the badge of business. I had it. I created it. I wrote the book on it.
Yeah.
I recorded the song.
You're the Marshall.
Marshall. I got all the merch for it. No, I was it. It was. We've talked about this before. You used to say, "What are you up to, bro?" And I go, you go, "I'm exhausted just listening to what you did today."
Now you know why, right?
I do know why. It was just, it was crazy, insane. How many more things can you take on? Because that is the mindset of, okay, I've got to get more. I've got to get more. It's the need, want, moreness, I call it. I need, I want, I have to have more. And it's interesting because I've told you now for well over gosh, it's been a year, I think. There's this one marketer who I can't imagine what he has to do, even though he's got it down to send this number of emails, 2 or 3 a day. I mean, he's got to spend time planning hundreds of emails, or somebody does. And then he's got to do it again. And it's the same thing. It's this much today, this much tomorrow. This is worth this. I built this for this one. All of the subject lines. He's a master at it, but it's all to get you to buy something now.
Yeah.
And it's just, where does it stop? Where, as opposed to, I got to show up on Thursday for an hour or so and talk about what I love to do with people I love to talk to, who will go to the end of the earth to find money to give me.
Exactly. And that's it. What it's about. Like, if your system looks like this, if it's all you, how many things can you take on, and how do you decide what to do and when to do it? Like, what's the thing for you? And I can tell you that there's a lot of reactive businesses out there. And I was one of them. I think I'm still reactive to a degree, but I've gotten really good in the last couple of years to be proactive. I don't even think that's a word. It's either active or non-active, whatever it is, right? Or reactive.
Yeah, it's reactive.
Right, reactive or active.
Yeah, when we talk about this, I think there is a personality type that feels they need to do more. And it's like, God, you can do all that. And it's like, well, of course I can do all that. I'm a superhero. When in essence, you're not. You're actually exposed to kryptonite at that point, because everything you're doing is draining you. Instead of, so I think there's something with a personality.
Well, it's an entrepreneurial type. An entrepreneurial type automatically. I'm like that. Like, I'm driven by what's more. And I satisfy that, I guess, that need, or like it's like air to me, by knowledge. I want more knowledge. Right. But there's also a point which is coming up now, is like, okay, you can take on more there, but you have to do something with the knowledge. There's also those people who like take on knowledge and don't do anything with it. But that is you're absolutely right, Scott, that it's a huge pattern that entrepreneurs always want the next thing, that we're always in momentum. I give credit to Alex Sharfin for that, because, look him up and look at his entrepreneurial trait or something like that. I forget what it's called. Forgive me, Alex. But he described that we are hunters. Like, we're always out there looking for the next thing. And if we're not in momentum, which is absolutely true for me, I don't know about you, but if we're not in momentum, we feel as though we're dying. We always have to keep moving forward. But then at the same time, you can't just keep on adding stuff. And this is where, then giving credit to Rich, he said, one of the most dangerous questions an entrepreneur can ask is, what's the next thing? What else can I do? Like, that's a dangerous question, because he realizes as well, he didn't describe it as the momentum or the hunter thing, but as soon as you become successful at something, which is, I've done this so many times, it's like, this is working. Now what else can I go do?
I'm bored now. What's next?
Exactly. But now without this, I haven't done that. It's like, you know what? I'm not doing that. I'm building this business not to work more. I'm building it to serve more people, but to have an awesome life. And this has been like an eye-opening experience over the last, 2.5 years doing Atlas, and just going, okay, I'm just going to go, like you said, from one Thursday to the next Thursday, and just show up and serve.
And again, I've talked about this before, is I had created some programs years ago, and I delivered it to 10 or 15 groups, and then 10 or 15 more. And I would just go show up and do what I love to do.
Right.
And it's always different, even though it was the same thing.
Right.
It was an Atlas-esque kind of thing without, dream clients. They were ideal clients because it was fun and I loved it. But it was like, it was so simple. It'd be like, okay, I'm going to this city to present this program that I've done. Everything's set up. Everybody, I get off the plane. Somebody picks me up, takes me to the hotel. Everything's set up. I show up. I do my thing. I have a blast, and it's on to the next one. And I think when we start to see that as a mindset, because that's what this is, without having to get on an airplane and get picked up and go to a hotel and all that, is okay, I'm going to present this thing and I'm going to get so good at it.
Right.
10,000 hour rule. What book is that from? The Outliers.
Right.
Malcolm Gladwell, I
Right.
believe.
Yes.
It's like, what would happen if you did something so many times? How good would you get at it? And it's not the same thing.
Right.
We talk about different pieces of this for the last 130 weeks. And each time we talk about it, it's a little bit different because it's bringing forth, like as we talked earlier, I thought about Seth Godin's The Practice, where in there it's about the practice.
Yes.
Going back to the sigmoid curve of if you just realize that you were in the practice and not so focused on the outcome and that it's going to work, or you know what? Maybe this iteration of it's not going to work, but it's going to work. Again, going back to if there is a hungry audience of your dream clients that have a problem that we can promise to solve, then they're going to find us. I fully believe that now.
Yeah.
There's nothing about I have to go out and find. No. I just have to go out and do what I do, and they'll find. And we were talking earlier about the Superpower Matrix, and to me, it went to the top of my list whenever I engage with someone. Is I want to know what your superpowers are, and I want to know who your dream client is before we do anything in mission and vision and escalators and chain of beliefs. And I don't care about any of that. Who's a dream client? What comes along with them? What's their crisis? Their presenting problem? Quoting Atlas stuff. What's the oasis? Where do they need to go? What's the ultimate benefit, future state that you need to take them to? And who is that person? And what are your superpowers that can help them go there? That's it. Now we can start playing. But before that, it's like, why build a course? Why do anything until I was on a live last week with Dee and her group, and we were just like the 4 things that you need to have. I think we talked about this, and it was like, you got to have a dream client. You got to know what your superpowers are, which relate to your product and the crisis and the solution, the problem. You got to have an amazing landing page with the proper sequences. And there was one other, but I said, that was it. You didn't need. And I said, okay, D, we could say, here's the 4 things that everybody needs to know about getting online successfully, blah, 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 blah. And next week, we're going to go live, and anybody that wants to join us. And then the following week, we're going to do a 2-day program if you're interested. Know anything and build it on Google Docs with a Google form and not have to do any of that we've talked,
exactly.
Getting into the whole, I got to do everything. And you taught me that too. It's like how simple it becomes. And I hear people time and time again struggling with, how can I have all these conversations with all these people? Well, first of all, they're dream clients that you have conversations with. And you want to. You wake up going, I can't wait to have the next part of the conversation with this person until they either, Seth Godin, enroll, stand in line, or, you should go stand in another line. This isn't for you. And
and when it comes to the superpowers, I had a conversation I trained today on the Superpower Matrix as well. And one of the points is that, like, to your point of like, just get better at doing what you do. And what I always talk about is like, make sure that, first of all, you're in your zone of genius and superpowers and stuff that you love to do and easy for you to do. And you can talk about it day in, day out without getting bored of it. Because how long have I been talking about Superpower Matrix, right? For the last 2 years at least. But today was, again, it was like, oh no, how many times am I going to, answer the same questions about Superpower Matrix? But it was always, there's always something great about it. There's always a different way of answering the same question. But today, as you know, I also learned a couple of new things and like, wow, that's a unique way of looking at that. So that's one area. But then the other piece of this that I wanted to add to what you were saying is that when people talk to me about what they're doing, because you just said, like the whole Atlas thing is all about just, build and co-create with your customers, like, and find out what they want. And this is where a lot of us get messed up, because I see so many people say, I want to create a program that does this. Okay. It's so much better in my mind. I believe that if somebody came to me and I asked them, okay, what do you want to do? Like, what's the thing that you want to do? Imagine if a client or a clarity caller, somebody on a clarity call said to you, my clients tell me this is what they're struggling with, and I'd like to do this, rather than, well, I want to build a course on this. Because as soon as somebody tells me that, I'm like, okay, well, what did your clients tell you?
Right.
They didn't tell me anything. I haven't talked to them yet. Big
Yeah.
mistake.
My family said it was a good idea.
Yeah.
And my friends too.
I mean, we're not dissing anybody, but that's how I was. It was like, I think this is going to be great. I want to build this because this is what I want to talk about. And so if you're listening to this right now and that's you, then I challenge you lovingly to say, what does your clients want? What do your clients want? Like look at there's big corporations now who are finally getting on board with this, finally taking from we know it all to let's go ask our clients. Go figure.
But let's go ask our dream clients.
Let's go ask our clients what they want.
Yeah, but ask our dream clients.
Exactly.
What they want, not just everybody out there. Because if you go out and ask everybody, you could ask your ideal clients and they'll give you answers that are going to be different than your dream client. And you only want to know what your dream client wants because at the end of the day, that's all we want.
Exactly. So back to this is we're talking about moving forward. So if you right now are listening to this, more than likely you have enough information to move forward. It's just that you're afraid of moving out of your comfort zone to go test it, that it may fail. Yeah, it'll probably fail. That's why we showed the sigmoid curve at the beginning, but then you'll know it doesn't work. But you don't need more information, because if that's all we needed, we'd all be rich. Everybody would be rich. And what's happening is why people aren't rich is because they lack clarity, they lack focus, and they lack systems. And results come from clarity. And that's where one of my zone of genius is about getting people very clear on where they need to go with the blocks and all those things. So that's why we want to talk about the clarity mindset, because clarity is a choice. It's a conscious direction. It's about making a decision to move forward. And it's funny because when I started coaching, Scott, I did these masterminds, like I said, and one of the very first questions I asked people, and there's like 10 people in the room, right? And I'd say to them, like, okay, well, why are you here? And a lot of times they would say, to get more clarity. And I like, cool, right? But it's funny because they believed that clarity would land in their lap by being in the room. It would just like, okay, I'm here and I'm opening to the universe. So clarity to land in my lap. And I'm like, that's just not how it happens. Clarity is not something that just automatically shows up because you went to a conference or mastermind or whatever. It's a choice. It's a conscious direction. I'll stop there because did you have any thoughts or input on that one?
Definitely, totally incomplete.
Okay.
I went to a clarity conference. I was on a clarity call, and now I'm clear. I don't think there's any clarity on a clarity call. I think it's about starting in the direction of where you need to be going. And it is a conscious decision to say, okay, I need to become more clear on this. I need to invite more clarity in. It's a process that goes down. And how do I get that clarity? It's not an instantaneous thing.
Right.
It is a total direction, and it's part of the journey. It gets clearer and clearer. I'll just use this an example of, we've been talking about dream client for how many years now, you and I together. It's been, years, whatever the number is, 3-4 years. And until it became clear to me, it was, I made a conscious direction. I was like, I believe in this and that, what we've talked about. It took time for it to become embodied into my being on what it was, and then experiencing it to then go to a different level to be able to now talk about it with others in a way that you have no idea what this thing is. I can tell you what it feels like now to be like, you know what, dream clients, this and that, and I don't want to mess around with anybody else. It's just, why would I? It would be stupid of me.
We got that on tape now.
Got that on tape. Scott, let me replay this. You said it would be stupid. Stupid. Stop being stupid. Scott, go.
I don't know who this is, but the superpower, that was mine. Probably somebody who watched you and D. Great call with you and D.
Yeah, Emma Brooks. Yeah.
Ah, very cool.
That's Emma Brooks. Yeah. She had some great take feedback. Yep.
Yeah. And Teen is busted on the what's next. Yeah, exactly. Right. So you're asking like what's next. And by the way, yeah, thank you for being here live. If you are live with us now, please let us know #live or #replay if you're on the replay. And by the way, I'm going to give a little plug for our Facebook group. If you want to join our amazing Facebook group where Scott and I are in there every day, helping you, answering questions, and all that kind of great stuff. It's a great community. It's a small, tight knit. What's the word I'm looking for? Curated community. That's the word I'm looking for, of heart-centered, amazing humans. So if that's you, let us know and get yourself into that group.
There's also sarcasm from time to time. I just want to make sure that they understand that too. And the other thing too, Joey, is it's interesting because there's these spurts as the group grows, as the tribe grows, and then we're like, okay, awesome group is Monica Murphy, by the way. Yes, Monica,
Thank you.
And I think at times like, okay, it's getting time to thin the crowd again.
Yeah, exactly.
It just grows, and I see people join, and I look at names and like I never see them. That's it. They've joined. And again, we've talked about this. It's okay to join a group and be silent. It's okay to have people join your group and be silent. But there has to be at least a thumbs up, or that was cool, or a heart, or anything that says you're not just taking up bandwidth in my community, in my tribe. And they're not detracting from it, but they're just not enhancing it in any way.
Yeah, the way that I feel is that we're a distraction for them. They're just joining a group and just not engaging with. We're not helping them if they're not coming into the group and at least asking for help or hanging around. And like you said, we don't expect somebody to come in and start engaging right away because it takes a little bit of time. You're at the back of the room. You just want to feel the room out.
Well, it's pillar 3. It's pillar 3 with this. Pillar 3 is on their time.
Right.
Pillar 3 also applies to this. Somebody gets in your group and they may be somebody that doesn't, but at least, again, it's the same thing with emails. If you're sending emails out and nobody's doing anything with it and haven't for 6 months, then why hurt your sender reputation? Get rid of well, they might buy one day and 2 years down the road. If they're going to buy something, they'll come find you again.
Yeah, if they're really interested in you, and you're doing the right thing with Superpower and Prefluence, you're always out there, they'll opt back in. They want to come back into your world.
If they found you, they'll find you again. Because it's like you go to a coffee shop and you see somebody and you go every couple of days and they're there. Well, chances are you go back to the coffee shop on that day or those days, you're going to see that person again.
Right. Exactly.
I don't know where that one came from.
Thanks, Emma, by the way, for being here live after midnight. We appreciate you so much. We appreciate everybody. Thank you for being here live.
Joey, that we've had so many people, so many from Europe for the last 2.5, 3 years showing up. Like it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm getting up. It's 1:00. It's 4:00. Doesn't matter. I'm going to get up and listen to this stuff. Even though they've waited 130 weeks for us to finally deliver something.
Sarcasm, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, sarcasm bell, sarcasm alert.
All right, let's get back to this. So it doesn't magically appear, the clarity. Like I said, you have to go out and find clarity. And yeah, getting on a clarity call with somebody is part of that finding. It's part of, okay, here's the next step for you. But that's not complete clarity. It's on the journey of it. That's why coaching is so important. Getting into programs with guidance and input and all the insights from the person who you trust to guide you is so important. It's a constant refinement over time. You're never absolutely clear. You might be clear about something right now, but there's still a fog looking down the road. So what it does is when you're doing this, it defines the path because it's a crystal clear understanding of what you want to do and why you want to do it. That's where I come into people's lives. Why do you want this? What do you want now? Or what do you want in the next 90 days? So let's get you there so you can actually start moving. And you'll know at that point, when you know that step, you'll know what to add, why you want to add it, and when to add it. This comes back to the just-in-time learning or just-in-case learning, all that other stuff. And I'm still very big on that. It's like, you don't need all this. What do you need right now? And let's get very clear on your next steps, because I see people tripping over themselves like what's like directly below their nose, because they're looking way out into the future constantly, and they need to know what the clarity piece is that they're kicking right now, that they're tripping over. So the clarity is about lifestyle boundaries, and part of developing a strategy is defining what you'll never do. And this is so important. What is it that you will never do? And I'm talking about your business. What are the services that you'll never do? The people you never work with, all the customers you'll never sell to. Like I said, the services that you'll never offer. What are those things? And I won't read this, but like, I wrote this as an example of, what do I want to do? Being very clear, and having a statement like this, so you understand what your boundaries are. But look at the bold pieces. I will not work my weekends or holidays either. I want to keep my relationships. I want to being present with people, not degrade my health. Like, these are things that I am not willing to give up on. And so when you're very clear on what you want to, what you don't want to give up, then it's so much easier to figure out what you want. And again, there's my hero picture with John, because like this is the one phrase, like when I asked him, this used to make me always break up when I was telling the story, because it totally changed my life. Because when I asked him after the mastermind, because I was just getting into coaching, and I said, dude, like, let me ask you a question. Two questions. One, I want to go back and help my clients. So give me advice. Like, what is the one thing I should ask somebody on a business level? And on the business level, he said, tell them to get people who play in the stuff that they hate, like basically building a dream team. So get people who play in the thing that you hate to do. Okay. So for me, it would be an accountant who just, that's all they want to do, or a bookkeeper, right? That just get somebody who plays. And I'm saying the word play over and over again, because it's super important. This is not just about delegating. This is not just about getting somebody who can do bookkeeping. It's about getting someone who plays in it. That is just their superpower. And that's a very hard thing to find. But that's not the main point. The point is this is what he said to me. He said, ask your clients, what are they willing to trade their life for? And I want you to think about that question, because when he said it to me, not only did I get emotional, and even when I was teaching this, I would get emotional because it meant so much to me. And here's the way that I took it, and how I explained to people that you got to start moving toward changing your life now, right? It was, the way that I see this is that at the end of your life, are you going to look back on today, August 2nd, that you wasted your life by listening to 5 minutes of this show or an hour of this show, right? Are you willing to trade your life for this? And every second of your life, that's the way you look at it. So going back to this, it was like I would challenge my clients at the point who, and at this time, they were people who wanted to move out of their job and do something full time. And it would always be about that. And I'm saying, okay, what do we need to do to make you go from quitting your job? And they would tell me, but they would always be fearful in all this. And so I would bring that quote back up and I'd say, okay, what are you willing to trade your life for? Because right now, you're trading your life for something that you hate. You're telling me that you absolutely hate your job, getting in a car, getting up at 6 a.m, driving to work, and all this kind of stuff. You absolutely hate it. And you're telling me, and not in so many words, that you're willing to trade your life for that. And I'm not telling you to trade or to stop working tomorrow, but I'm asking you to make a decision to do the uncomfortable thing so that in 90 days you can quit your job, or 6 months from now you can quit your job. I'll leave it there because I know you have some input on this one.
There's so much, Joey, that you're unpacking here.
Yeah.
With just getting so specific in so many areas of your life. And this is really a key one. That is, what's the dream life, dream business, dream client? And, what are you willing to trade your life for? I don't think I need to add that much more to it.
It's powerful, right?
Yeah. You know what I trade my life for.
Well, not in the past couple of years, you were trading your life where you're willing to trade your life for that.
No.
Right? And so it sucked, right?
It did.
So you're no longer willing to trade your life for that in the next 2 years going forward.
No,
That's
exactly.
what we're trying. That's where this whole point is, right? Is like, so anybody listening to this is like, the more you're stuck, the more you're continuously sit and go, well, I'll just wait for this and I'll just wait for that. And a part of your life sucks or whatever, then you're trading your life for something that you hate. And you're
Yeah.
making a conscious decision whether you know it or not. And that's the whole point of this, because like, you have to understand what's holding you back, because there's you and then there's the future. But there's a constraint right now, or there is a limiting factor. And you have to understand which one of those is holding you back from the future. And the future could be tomorrow, the future could be next week. So, what is it holding you back? And you have to be very clear on what your goal is. And I'm not talking about big goals, I'm talking about short term, 90 days, a year from now, 3 years from now, whatever it is, and identify that your limiting factor. What's the constraint and what's the limiting factor? Once you figure that out, you focus on alleviating that. I'll throw it back to you.
Each slide is like more powerful than the next, Joey. You're like,
now you know why I was teaching this to private clients, right?
For a lot of money. And we talk about that on Heart-Centered Marketing Made Easy, our show. We talk about mindset. You're getting way into mindset, marketing, strategy. Like this mindset is such an important piece, because it's about rewriting the stories that are, excuse me, in our mind. There's always two. Be clear about your goal, and that's the clarity, and that starts the clarity of the clarity. Yeah, you can get on a clarity call and that, and be like, okay, here's my dream client, my superpowers, and my goal, and here's what I want my business to look like. But it still has to get clear, because it has to auspicize in the system, in the brain, in the body, in the mind. And yeah, what is your limiting factor? And how do you alleviate it? Well, you go find a coach, you go find somebody that can help you, go find a mastermind, you go get into a program that you talk about, well, here's my goals, here's what's holding me back, and here's how I'm going to fix it. And then you've got accountability, and that stuff is mindset. And it's not easy, because going back to the beginning, the only thing constant is change. And to become comfortable, we have to become uncomfortable. To become comfortable again, to become uncomfortable. And yeah, okay. So what is the limiting factor? And I better go learn how to deal with it, or find somebody to help me deal with it, so that we as entrepreneurs can continue to grow. And going back to the Sigmoid Curve at the beginning, is getting comfortable and being in the practice, in that curve of I'm learning and now I'm building.
Yeah. And like, a lot of this, this is where all of this stuff was pretty much all John's teachings, because as I mentioned before, may have mentioned before, that my first interaction of mindset change was with John Assaraf. I just dove right into his stuff, and that was in 2007 when I was making that change. And then 2011, I was blessed that he was in a mastermind with me. I was like, holy crap, talk about, power of the universe and manifestation, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I just gravitated to everything he was teaching, and then just turned around and started teaching it all to my private clients. I go, you have to understand this, because I was already, as we're talking about what we do is when we serve is a great analogy. And my coach Gio talks about it all the time. Like, we're just a couple of steps in front of people, and we're just turning around and holding out our hand and saying, let me bring you across the bridge. Right. That's all we're doing, holding out our hand and bringing them across. So that's what this is all about. And then we talked about beliefs, values, and habits. And this was a big eye opener for me as well, because the beliefs, values, and habits, beliefs is how business really works. And what are your 3 values or beliefs about business? And I think this is mixed in with a little bit of Rich Sheffrin here too. So I challenge you, like, if you're watching this right now, you don't have to do them right now, but write down 3 beliefs that you have about business. I believe X about business. What is it? And an example would be, I believe you have to sacrifice a few years to be successful. I hear this all the time. And this was even, 10 years ago when I was teaching this. I still hear this. that you have to sacrifice a few years to be successful. Well, I don't believe you need to sacrifice. And one of my commitments is to stop people from sacrificing their life, right? Can you see now, Scott, where that whole purpose comes from? Like, this is a 10-year-old presentation.
Yeah.
And back then I realized, no, you don't need to sacrifice. You need to strategically commit.
Yeah.
There's a complete difference.
I agree. I mean, we're talking here about strategically committed to building a business, a legacy business that will keep you in a dream life for forever.
Yeah.
And that takes time, but it's not a sacrifice, because it's like you and I have talked about. I spent 2 years, 70 hours a week, 6+ days a week in a nightmare life, sacrificing. Was it? There's a ton that I learned from it. The fact that it cost me a lot of money, put me in debt, but I don't regret it for a second. But it was just, it had to be what it had to be in order.
Yeah.
For
Well,
me.
would you do it again?
Hell no.
Right. So
You
recognize would you recognize a sacrifice now as it was happening?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to sacrifice my life for that. I will invest in what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. And then where do the beliefs come from? Where do your beliefs come from about business? This is the question you want to ask. And
that's just it. And I ask that question when I ask questions in my interactions and engagements with people. When I go as deep as I go, I'm like, well, where'd that come from?
Right.
And like, well, it came from usually parents, so sometimes friends, and or your peers, colleagues.
Yeah. And then this is about money, beliefs about money. So again, you write down 3 beliefs and feelings that you have about money. An example is money is powerful, it's dirty, it's a necessity. And what are your thoughts about people who have it? I grew up with a major mindset around money, around people who had a lot of money, because they were not nice people, the ones that I met. And I just did not like rich people at all. And I had this stigma around money. I still kind of have it. But thankfully I'm in a world now with very, very wealthy people who are completely the opposite. The way that they deal with money is completely different than the people that I grew up with or seen around me. Like, they're not, they don't just flash around their money. They give so much to charities and all kinds of things. They're just giving back to the world rather than just wasting money. And you know what I'm talking about. Like,
yeah. Well, they're philanthropic.
Yeah.
In a really powerfully good way.
Yeah. So that's allowing me to be okay with, like, okay, you know what, I can make a whole bunch of money here, and there's a good reason for it, rather than being brainwashed or whatever you want to call it, growing up with that mindset like, yeah, rich people are just not cool. I don't want to be rich. So what are your thoughts about people who have a lot of money? And this is a big one. Like, on a scale of 1 to 5, I'd like to know, like, if you want to play along with us in the chat right now, and if you're willing to be vulnerable or just play along, like, really, like, how attached are you to money on a scale of 1 to 5? And is everything about getting paid? And if that's, and then this is just being clear on yourself, or being vulnerable, or just understanding what you're all about, so that you can A, understand, and B, if you wanted to change it, to help your business grow into a dream life with dream clients. And the last one is your ability. Like, what is your beliefs and your ability on your level of self-acceptance on a scale of 1 to 5? What is your level that you are okay with who you are, and at what you've already done? Like, because again, this comes back to, I'm not good enough because Johnny has more money than me, or Johnny is a number 1 real estate agent and I'm not, or whatever. Like, so how, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you accept yourself of where you are? And then there's 3 positive beliefs. And this is what I ask everyone to do, is 3 positive beliefs that you have about yourself and your potential. What are they? So I believe that I am this, my potential is that. Write those down, and that helps you. And then there's the saboteur. And this is a huge one because this is the little voice that points at negativity. This is the thing that says you need to sacrifice 3 years, 5 years in order to be successful. And it tells you that you're not smart. It tells you you're not experienced. I call this dude little doubting Dan. It says you're too old, you're too fat, you're too lazy. It's too late to do that. The thing is that this voice, this saboteur, is always going to be there, but we need to reduce its power. And I'm going to be vulnerable here for a second, and I want to show you a picture of my very first intake or prep, my mastermind prep that I prepared to go for. And this was in 2012 for my very first real coach. And when they were asking, like, what are you here for? Or something like that, I found it. And I want to share it with you to show you like how much where my saboteur was and how much I've actually changed. If you know anything about me this year or these years, but this is what I wrote on this paper. And I don't know if you can read that, but I'm going to read it. Or like, can you read that, Scott?
Yeah, you've got here a bit intimidated by the success in the room. Your second one was, am I a good fit? And the third one is, don't want to disappoint you.
Pretty powerful, right?
Yeah.
That's who I was in 2012. Actually, you know, wait a minute. I can zoom in on this other picture right here.
Something beneath it. I don't know if there's more under disappoint you, but intimidated by the success in the room. Now you get to intimidate other people.
I don't know if that was the point, but
no, it's not the point, but I just said it because I could.
But I just want people to see that because it's like when you see someone who is successful and I'm not saying that I am, but maybe I'm a couple steps ahead of somebody else, or you see somebody in your field that is doing so much better than you are, and you're down on yourself because of whatever reasons. It's not your saboteur talking. And a lot of times we put people on pedestals, and there is no such thing as pedestals. They're just ahead of you on the journey, and that's okay. They're on the same level as you. They're on the same journey, and you can ask for help so you can follow them on the journey. But there's no pedestal. Nobody's higher than you.
Nope.
But that's the way we feel. That's the way I felt. As like, should I be in this room? I'm intimidated by everybody else's success. I'm not as successful as these people. Why should I be in this room? And again, like, I've gotten over this now, but dude, like, when I was presenting this stuff, I would cry on stage, like looking at some of these pictures with John, the quote, and this one here, because it was who I was. And maybe I was already going through some of the transition, but it was like, I still have to share with them to say, like, it's okay to be where you are and help them get through to the next stage. Oops, let me go back to here. This one here. And this is the big piece. Like, what? Like, I can't believe that I wrote that. I don't want to disappoint you. You know, I don't want to say something here that I want to disappoint you. So, what are 3 self-limiting beliefs that are holding you back? And I would challenge you to write those down too. 3 self-limiting beliefs holding me back from success are, and then write those down. And then Alan Brown has a great quote. He says, "You will never outperform your own self-image." And I want you to read that again. Like, you'll never outperform your self-image. And it brings us to the values piece of this. So beliefs, values, and habits. What are the most important things to you? And the 5 most important things to me in the world are. That's how you would answer this. And write those down. What are those things? And I can tell you that those things are going to shift. They're going to move around. Because values, there's all kinds of different ways of looking at values. That there's core values. There's values today about the business. There's values about your business. There's values about your clients. Like, all these kind of things are important to have a grasp on what the values mean to you. And are your daily decisions aligned with those values? And I can tell you that a lot of ours aren't. A lot of ours aren't. A lot of people will say, I want freedom, I want happiness, or whatever. and you look at their lives and look at what they're doing or talk to them, and their values aren't aligned, or their decisions aren't aligned with their values.
It's the decisions aren't aligned with the values because, and I was in this many years ago, is I will live my dream life when. After I've achieved this, I will. And then once I have this, I will. And my whole future Scott, present Scott, and the whole conversation going on was, okay, what if you lived your dream life starting this moment? What if you did what you wanted to do each day? And I started doing it in spite of anything because it was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Now, it's just sometimes like not easy because of that monkey brain, that monkey mind that says, you got to go make some money. You got to go make some money. You got to make, well, but what about living in my zone of genius and think time and pray time and meditation first? That will enable me to do everything else better. And those are daily decisions.
Yeah, it's so true, man. Like, I mean, I remember, I watch what people do and not listen to what they say. Because I was that dude. I mean, when I was in the studio mixing for 24 hours, 23 hours, because I had to sleep. So 23 hours and saying that I was doing it for my family, that was BS because my son was in the vocal booth playing hide and seek with me. And if my family was important as the way I said it was, then I wouldn't be 23 hours in my studio and forcing my son to come downstairs to play with me in the vocal booth. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, watch what you do and not what you say.
Yep.
And that's the whole thing is, what are your decisions aligned with what you tell others that your values are? And the habits are that most entrepreneurs, as you know, want the immediate gratification. They want the results right now, but they're unwilling to make the changes in the way that they do things to get that. They're unwilling to make the changes. How many times have you heard, Scott, I'm stuck here, and you give them the solution and they're like, let me think about it. Or I'm going to go back and try this other thing. And you're like,
let me try it the other way first. I think I'm almost there.
Yeah. That sounds great, but
close. Give me just a little more time.
So then they try something for a little while and they continue their old habits of thinking and they expect different results, because this is going back to the whole comfort zone, right? Getting out of their comfort zone. Then they go search for something else, and then they repeat the process and they go back to their own habits. So that's why the habits are so important. And successful people have rituals and they install positive habits into their life. And as you know, I talked about the 50-minute focus. That's what comes up for me back then, was how do I, focus time? And that was one of the successful habits that I instilled, 10 years ago, whatever it was. And it was just a ritual. Now it's part of my life. It's what I do every single day. It's a positive habit. So these are from Brendan, where it's like, I need to do more of what? I need to do less of what? I need to start doing what? And I need to stop doing this other thing. Those are the habits that you need to put into place right now. And if you do this every single month in terms of the habits, your life will change. And you don't have to change 10 habits like a month. You just need to change one at a time. If you changed one habit and instilled a positive habit once a month, you would have 12 positive habits a year. And imagine how that compounds over 10 years or 5.
The same thing is, would you like $10 million or a penny doubled every day for 30 days?
Exactly.
It's the same thing. And it's like, Joey, I told you, let's see, 3.5 weeks ago was, I got 12 weeks. What am I going to do with 12 weeks for future Scott? And a couple of the things were, I want to spend time in the morning thinking, because we talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to
schedule thinking,
meditating, and in zone of genius. I want to do those things every day. And those were 4 things that I just started doing. And it's like what that does for everything else. And it didn't cost anything for me to do it. And then I think I mentioned that I was talking to a fellow about it. And he was like, I want to start not engaging in devices like you are until a certain time. And so that starts to infect and affect other people when we start to do it. So there's more than just doing it ourselves, because like when you started doing all this, now you infect other people through strategic marketing, marketing made easy, Atlas, Elite, VIP, all of that. And then it's a key piece to all of this too, is once you learn something, don't be selfish with it. Go teach somebody else. Like if I read something or we do this or something else and I get something, it's like, okay, I need to talk to somebody about this and share it so that it becomes more powerful to me and to them.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I consolidated all of these things. There's actually three people, like three gurus in there, like Rich Sheffer and Brendan Richard, now that I've gone through it again. And who's the other person I talked about? I don't know who else it was. John Assaraf, for sure. Like, why would I forget? So
can't forget John again.
Yeah, because it was so powerful. Like, I absorbed all this information very quickly in the short amount of time. And you're right. It was like, I'm already a couple steps ahead of people, and I was training my private clients who were not paying as much as me to be in the group to find all that, get all the information and everything else, and consolidate that and do it exactly what I do today. Is how do I pay to be in the rooms, right? That, beside people who can teach me something very, very quickly, and just distill that down and then teach it to other people on the outside. And
I'm going to stop you, Joey, because you made a really big point that I want anybody listening to understand is, and you and I ascribe to this philosophy and always have, how can I cut this learning curve faster? How can I find somebody to teach me what they play so easily in so that I can learn it and teach it? And how do I find the money to go hire them to do it? Right. I spent the first few years in the marketing world, speaking world, just doing that. I like what you have to say, how much to go engage with you. And like you did too, I want to go hang out with these people, and I want to do, like I said, I wish they would invent the Vulcan mind meld that I could do with you. And what's important, what you do is, Joey, you take all this knowledge and then you process it, and then you give it back out and you teach it. And again, you posted in the group today or somewhere that you always give credit, or at least you try and remember.
Yeah.
You might not always, but say, look, this wasn't mine. I don't remember who it was. Instead of saying, I came up with this thing. It's
yeah. I've seen that happen like a couple times. And I remember one person who's a very, very big person, and I went through their course, and it was like it was from Eugene Schwartz. Like, and you know how big Eugene Schwartz is in our world, right? And I just couldn't believe that they took I think it was the 5 levels of customer awareness. I think it was that. It was something that is like so taught, like that it comes back to Eugene, and this person claimed it was theirs. Like, I just couldn't believe it and I just totally lost respect for that whole thing. I'm like, I can't believe this. Like, does this person not know that we know that this is anyway? And I don't want to be caught in that. Like, I just don't want to be that person that says, yeah, this is mine, and forget it. I'd rather just say, I learned this from John and from Brendan and all these, and this is great. Let me share it with you.
And again, you used the word earlier, you curate things. And that's what, again, it's a lesson for people is you can curate a lot of stuff and package it to help somebody with it. And that's the whole idea of this journey we're on. And it's interesting, you added a word because we talk about what people hire us, and it's for the guidance and insight. And then, of course, there's all the other I words, inspiration and intuition. And they hire us for ideas and to help them implement, to influence them, and to infect them with what we do, to instruct them. And then you added another I. All these cool I words was input. The guidance, insight, input. You use those 3 actually.
Wow, I don't even remember seeing that.
Well, you did. And it is, because it is the input, it's the feedback with the guidance and insights. And now you've got guidance, input, and insight along with the other I's. It's a lot of powerful I words in what it is that we do to help people. And gosh, Joey, the mindset training that you did this evening, and it's just like, this could be like, 10 different segments, 10 different sessions.
For sure.
is like, okay, write down the three things now. Let's go talk about those three things. What are your beliefs about money? And now let's hit what are your beliefs about money? Where'd they come from? What's the new story that we have to write about money? Because we can.
Yeah.
Kind of goes to what we read about in the practice, which one of my things was writer's block. Writer's block is real, but it's imagined. Most of what's in our life is real because it's imagined. There's very little that's actually real.
Yeah.
The rest is imagined. We make it up. We make the story. We ascribe to the story, believe in the story, and then we go live the story instead of like, let's change the story right now.
Exactly. That's it. That's my
That's
thoughts.
it. That's all you got.
That's all I got. That's all the thoughts for today. So I appreciate you being here. Thanks, Scott, for the input as well.
Sure.
As always, the insights and the guidance and all that stuff that you
I was
brilliantly
just a
give.
bystander tonight. You did it all tonight. You gave me a break. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm just gonna close my keynote here. So hopefully this was of value to you, and go back into the recording. And I would just encourage you to look at some of those questions, write them down for yourself. I promise you that they work. This is stuff that I trained for a long time, for 5, 6, 7 years, to private clients and private masterminds that help them excel their business. And I know there's a lot to unpack there, but the reason it was done that way was because we did like the hour training, whatever it took us in the morning, and then we would mastermind and brainstorm around that stuff that we talked about like all day, including them bringing up their challenges. So that was basically the format of the mastermind, but it was kicked off with these things to get their brains thinking, and hopefully it got you thinking today too. So we'll see you next. Anything you want to add to that, Scott?
Just that if you're watching live, hashtag live. If you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay. And it doesn't sound odd to me to say it. And please, if you're not a member of Strategic Marketing, Heart-Centered Marketing Made Easy Club, come join us. And Joey, if you would put the link up one more time.
Thank
and
you.
I want to thank you, Joey, for really giving some detailed, in-depth insight, intuition, inspiration into all this important mindset piece about the world, a dream life of online entrepreneurship. And it is about a mindset at this point, because that's what we talked about tonight. Very powerful. And it is imaginary. We get to imagine and create all of this and create the dream life with dream clients and a dream business in whatever way we want it to do. And then just listen to Joey, go take Atlas, and learn how to do it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, everyone listening. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next Tuesday, same time, same bad channel. We're here every Tuesday at